One thing that might be helpful is to stop for a moment and look at the Pope's attitude, John Paul II's attitude toward religious life. We take so many things for granted. He really did not understand religious life. That's not a criticism, it's really an observation. We go back to his days as a bishop in Poland and as a cardinal and in Krakow, and those were the times of occupation. First the Nazi occupation, then the Soviet Union. And during those times, of course, what a priest could do was very limited. In Poland, it was limited to parish work. John Paul II would take any priest there, whether they were diocesan priest or religious priest, and use them the way he wanted. And that meant stuffing them into, putting them into a parish here or there. He had no idea of the vast assembly of Jesuit works, how many things we were involved in, nor the method by which we arrived at, the criteria we used to choose apostolates. So for him, parish was the whole thing. When he first went to Sofia, when he went to Japan, he visited our university in Sofia in Tokyo, and Father Pitao, who was the provincial of Japan and had been the president of Sofia University, showed him around. He explained things to him. But the Pope was surprised, he was shocked to see all these Jesuits at Sofia University working in a university. Yet they were dressed in their cassocks, they got up early in the morning, they were good religious, but they were involved in running this huge enterprise, a university, which the Pope had no idea of. So to see the Jesuits doing this, it stunned them. And that's the thing. So he never realized, for example, all the works the Jesuits were doing right in Rome, where he lived. We had about 500 Jesuits in Rome. We were running institutions for him, the Biblical Institute, the Oriental Institute of Eastern Christian Studies, so many, Civiltà Cattolica, the thing we published every 2 weeks. We ran Vatican. These were all things we were doing he wasn't aware of. And this always came as kind of a surprise. So his notion of religious having their own criteria for determining their apostolates, that was just not within his vision. So, for example, when Father Dedzer was the delegate governing our order, John Paul II shocked him. He said to Father Dedzer, and Father Dedzer told me this, he said, you know, your Jesuit thing, you take a vow not to receive the episcopal dignity, you know, not to become a bishop. He said, you know, I'm not going to take that into consideration at all. Any priest I see, any Jesuit I see, I'm just going to take him. So well, Father Dedzer was understandably quite upset, because we live by these constitutions. So the idea that there was a set of norms and everything which determined your apostolate, and as I said, we Jesuits, we link religious and apostolic. Everything is apostolic. Well, that never dawned on John Paul II. So he didn't have the respect, really, for our constitutions that we had, or for other religious orders either. So he just went ahead and did what he wanted. But he was parish oriented, and you could see that, and you could understand that. But it made for great problems. So when we would talk about our general congregation, he wasn't comfortable with that. He didn't understand it. It was not a way of acting. And you know, for us, a general congregation is it's a democratic thing, that you have people elected to it, and they help determine. They're the ones who determine the policies of the Society of Jesus. It's not just the general executes them, but he doesn't determine them. He's a member of the congregation which determines our law. So that whole setup was foreign to the Pope, and he didn't know what to do with it, and he didn't trust it. This is noticeable when you would meet the Pope. A tendency in him, he would look at you, even if he knew you, and it was sort of a quizzical look. It was very discomforting, you know. And but then, all right, then it would go. But the first look was sort of with a bit of suspicion in it, and he wasn't comfortable with it. But then the whole idea of a general congregation, he was reluctant to let us have one because he couldn't foresee what was coming from it, and he knew that this would determine our way of acting. So he was very reluctant to give permission for a general congregation until he was reassured. What Father Arrupe was trying to do was to reassure him. He was saying, look, Father Arrupe said, with regard to my resignation, the best thing, the easiest thing, the most normal thing for us is to have a general congregation, he said. And you, the Pope, you address the congregation. And you can tell that congregation what you want them to do. So you can lay down things. That's why when GC 33 came about, we were very much on edge. We didn't know what was going to happen there at the congregation. Was the Pope going to allow us to hold it as we normally did? Would the general preside, or was he going to send a cardinal or somebody to run the thing? We didn't know, because he didn't know himself. And we knew that he had had discussions. He had sounded out different possibilities. One possibility was to have a general from another order run the congregation. And they had thought over certain ones. Or to have a cardinal do it. And he had run through different possibilities, which he eliminated one after the other, and finally settled on this way of doing it. That was very difficult.